Today we'll be going over an introduction, very baseline introduction on Linux. This is assuming you don't know anything about Linux. All right, this is what we'll be going over. All right, Linux is a family of Unix-based operating systems. So if you use Mac OS, you might be familiar with Unix. So it is open source, which means the original code is publicly viewable and can be modified. So Linux has several distributions. I listed a couple of them. In Cyber Patriots, we'll be focusing on Ubuntu and Debian. For this presentation, I'll be doing all of my examples in Ubuntu 18. All right, yeah. So if you don't know anything about Ubuntu, is you can use it as like your common desktop. So you have your web browser. You can like do stuff like what you would normally do on Windows. So all right. So Windows versus Linux. As I mentioned earlier, Linux. Oh, the kernel. All right. So if you're ever reading about Linux, you might see the word kernel pop up a lot. So just note that the kernel is like the core of the operating system. It's software residing in memory that tells the CPU what to do. All right, so Linux versus Windows. So Linux, as I mentioned earlier, is open source and has multiple distributions. The graphical user interface or the GUI for Linux could be changed. So if you don't like, the look of this, you can change it. I think it's fine. Generally speaking, Linux has less malware, but that does not mean there aren't any malware for Linux. It's just less compared to Windows. I'm using a VM right now, so this isn't a problem. But sometimes for certain computers, if you're trying to like use Linux as your operating system, if the computer is not made for Linux, sometimes you might like encounter problems. So if you're trying dual boot, keep that in mind. The user types for Linux are different from Windows. I think the three types for Linux are service, the regular accounts, and root. I think we already went over that. And the file structure for Linux is different. How they're similar is Linux and Windows could be used as a server and a workstation. Both of them can run similar applications, and both of them have similar vulnerabilities, which is important later on. All right, so software updates. Okay, so one thing that's important to know is that packages is how we'll be referring to a lot of like the software bundles. So packages are basically a collection of files that perform a certain task. And package managers are software tools for updating, installing, and configuring like software. So on Ubuntu, if you want like a graphical version of a package manager, it's Software Center, which is found here. You can press this, search for it, Ubuntu Software Center. So this is what it looks like. So if you click on the install tab, you can see all of your installed software. So I have document viewer. I don't know what Cheese is, but that's what that is. In case you need any updates, those will primarily show up here. I updated my VM like yesterday, so there aren't any. You can refresh to check if there are any updates. One thing to note is that oftentimes when you're booting up the VM for the first time, you might get this. I'm not sure if my cursor's on it, which is basically a pop-up. Oh, okay. I'll go back to that. Which is basically a pop-up prompting you to update your software. Yeah, okay. Someone asked where the software center is. Let me just go through that again. For me, it's on my tab, like the left toolbar. So it's right here. Can't zoom in. That's the icon. You can click the show applications button, the three icons on the bottom left, and just type up software center. Right. Yeah, and that's how you get it. One thing to note is that whenever you're installing software, let's say I want to get Zoom, right? Oh yeah, do you want me to go over like booting up, like doing the VMs? Okay, getting a Ubuntu VM working right now, or do you want me to say that for the end of the presentation?
We have, or last week I believe during A block we went over VMware Workstation installation. So we uploaded a YouTube video of the entire meeting. So I recommend you look
Okay.
at that.
If anyone's on Mac OS, like I can go over VirtualBox at the very end of this presentation. Oh yeah. So anyway, what I was saying is that in, yeah, when you're installing the when you're trying to install a package, right? Let's say Zoom client in this case, you need to authenticate yourself as root, right? So root is the administrative account, which I'll be going into later. So I don't feel like doing that now. So just keep in mind that whenever you're trying to install something, you have to be in root. Okay, so that was the graphical way of installing software. Through the command line, you can also do it through the command line. If you're not super familiar with the command line, that's fine. We'll go over that later. Just know that the services for installing packages is apt and dpkg. This isn't unique to Ubuntu. This is for, I think, all Linux distros, or at least for Debian too. Yeah. Oh yeah. Also, during your competitions, software updates is probably going to be one of the first things you want to do because it can take like a really long time. All right. So the file system. Okay. If you're native to Windows, the file system for Ubuntu might be a little difficult for you. So on Ubuntu, on Linux in general, the file system is kind of like a tree, right? So the primary, I guess we call the root file, the root directory, which is the directory at the very top of the tree. So all files and all directories are within the root directory, right? And so / is used to denote root. So that's important if you're going to the command line. All right, so some of the important folders that you should remember are the home folder. The home folder is where you have all of your user-specific files. So for example, let's go to, all right, this application I'm dragging right here, this is my file manager application. I think it's called Files on Ubuntu. It should be pinned to your taskbar. If not, you can search it on applications. So if I open this up and go to home, right? So desktop, documents, downloads, everything here, this are my user-specific files for my current user, right? So right now I'm logged into Rafu Kundakar, so that's the name of my user. So all the specific files, so documents, desktops, all that is in my user folder, right? And my user folder is within my home folder, right? So keep that in mind. Another important folder to remember is boot. That contains all your static boot files. So when you're booting up your operating system, those are the files that are important. And so be careful when you're modifying anything in there. If you do have to modify anything there, because it's easy to like break something there, and unless you know what you're doing, might mess something up. So another important one is /etc. That's where the bulk of your configuration files are. During the competition, it's going to be really important to be in this folder because a lot of the configuration files for your operating system, so like your so managing your groups, your sudoers file, that's going to be in here. And so there's your /lib or /libraries for short. That contains your essential libraries. Oh yeah, also remember that these have the / like right before them, which means that they're directly under the root directory, right? So yeah, good question. When someone asked how do we access these folders, you primarily do them through the command line, which I'll go over like at the end of the presentation. Yeah, but they're at they're directly under the root directory, right? So you usually go from the root directory to either the home or the etc. or the /lib. All right, so users and root. So as I said earlier, Ubuntu has 3 users. Linux has 3 users: service users, regular users, and root. So usually you're going to be a regular user. Regular users are essentially just normal accounts. As I mentioned earlier, they have their own specific folder with their documents, their media, and so on and so forth. They also have limited access, which means that they can't modify all files and they can't view all files, right? They also can't like make updates without authenticating. So you can organize users into specific groups, which is really important when you're trying to put root permissions. All right, so then we have the root account, which essentially has full access. So the root is an admin account, so you can run all commands, you can access all files. So it's really powerful for this. So if you're ever making updates, if you're ever installing packages, you're usually going to want to be in root. But it's not really a problem, but a warning with root is that it's really easy to permanently delete something. So let's say you're restructuring your directories, right? And you accidentally delete your entire home folder, right? That'd be very bad. So make sure you know what you're doing when you're in root. Yeah. Okay. So right after this, right after this, we're going to the command line. So whenever you want to access root, you need the sudo command. So this is the command line right here. Right. So sudo is basically, like it prompts you for entering root, right? So sudo and then any command is basically doing it under root. So if I just type in sudo without any command, it calls you for my username. I mean, for my password, right? From the laptop. All right. All right. So that was root. If you want to view your users, you can go into Ubuntu has a default users like graphical interface, which is right here. Yeah. So here, these are the 3 users on my current virtual machine. This is me. This is where I currently am, and these are my other users. So as you can see what type of account I am. Well, I'll have to first authenticate myself. Yeah. So you can see what type of account these are. So John over here is a standard account, not admin. And this is his password. All right. So standard versus admin is essentially like if you're an admin, you can access root, which means if you just saw it prompted me for my password and I was able to view all this information, right? A standard account, I don't think could do that. Like they can't access root at all, right? Yeah, right. That's how you view that. Oh yeah. I can also remove users from here. So if I wanted to remove Jeff because he's useless, I'd remove him here. Let's say I want to delete all his files. All right, Jeff is permanently gone. All right. Okay, yeah. So accessing that like interface is kind of hard for Ubuntu because you have to go through settings. So I recommend going to applications and actually searching for it. Down here. Right. Or you can have an actual or you can have like you can have users and groups, which is an actual GUI which is specifically for users and groups. So this might be a little more useful. I think it's called GNOME System Tools. So essentially the information on what I just showed versus this, let me just pull them up for comparison. All right. So the information is essentially the same, I think, like between these 2 applications. I just find this is a little easier, just I guess, because you can add users instantly, you can delete them, and also offers you to manage groups. All right, that's that. Oh, I'll go over installing this at the end. Yeah. All right. All right, so the command line, I've been talking about it a lot. It's a really powerful tool for Linux users. It's called Terminal on Linux, by the way, so don't get that confused. It's basically a text interface to your computer. So generally speaking, you'll use a command line to modify, navigate, and run files. So you'll be able to like go through your entire system and like run or delete certain files. So okay, I compiled like a somewhat brief list. I guess it's kind of long of like really common commands. These first 2 are really important. They're like important as in they're really basic. If there's one thing you take away from these commands, it would probably be the first 2, ls and cd. All right, so let's go over those right now. All right, so my thing froze. Let's go. Okay. I'll hide this. All right. Okay. So, all right, in order to open up your terminal, mine is pinned to my taskbar, which I recommend doing for easy access. Go to your applications and just type up terminal, and there it is. All right. So when you open your terminal for the first time, you're going to see this, right? Add Ubuntu, right? So Rafu Docker is my current username. I mean, it's the name of my current user, right? So as you saw earlier, I think John and Rafu Docker are the users on my current system. So yeah, all right. And I'll just get started on the commands. ls will let you see all the files in your current directory. So if I just hit ls, you can see that in my current directory, I have desktop, documents, downloads. So these are all of my directories. Examples.desktop is a file. You may have noticed that generally speaking, the directories are usually bolded and in a different color. So okay, so that's what ls does. It just lists your files. So let's say you wanted to enter one of these. Directories, right? So where you use cd, which is I think stands for change directory. So you put cd and then your target directory. So in this case, I want to go to documents. So cd documents. Now I'm in my documents. Okay, so as you can see, this tells me my current directory relative to my home folder. So do you see this tilde over here? I think that's a tilde. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah. All right. So that basically denotes your home folder, right? Because I'm not sure if you remember, but the / by itself. So just this, right? This by itself denotes root, but the squiggly / denotes home. So let's say I wanted to go to my home folder. That's how I'd go into there, right? So keep in mind, you can cd into any file. You can cd into any directory from anywhere, as long as you know the complete path, right? So I think someone earlier asked, oh yeah, Ryan gave a shortcut for terminal. I think someone asked, how do I access the /etc files, and how do I access the /lib files? So you do that through going to root. So if I do cd /, remember / is just my root directory, right? So if I hit ls, these are all of my directories in my root, right? So we have etc here, we have home here, we have boot, and we have a bunch of other stuff. All right. So we just hit cd etc, and now we're in our etc directory. Also, if I'm going too fast, let me know. All right. Let's see when we want to go to our boot, cd boot. Okay. We don't have to cd into each directory at a time, because if I cd into home, I have to cd into my user. That's a little tedious, right? So you can cd using you can either cd using the path relative to root or the path relative to home, right? So the path relative to home of my I think documents folder is /home /rafu, Rafu Docker /documents, right? Oh, I got the path wrong. Okay. Oh yeah, you don't need the first /. Right. C /home. Right. Yeah. So I'm yeah, I forgot to mention. .. represents your home directory. So right now I'm in my my user directory, right, with all my user files. Let's say I wanted to go back to my home directory, right? I do cd and then .. Okay. And you can kind of stack the parent. You can keep going back as much as you want. So let's go back to my user, right? Right. So you can, using .. you can go as far back as you want. So cd .. and that put me back to my root, right? So if you remember the tree diagram I had, right? Let me just pull that up again. So I was at my home direct. Let's say I'm in. Right. So let's say I'm in my users directory, right? Just imagine that there's another branch from home to my Rafu Docker directory, right? Basically, going cd .. right? Entering that command would essentially bring me to the home folder, right? And then doing .. again would bring me to the root folder. Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's how you navigate. You hit ls to see all the directories. Right. So let me go back to my home directory. Oh yeah. Within your home directory, each one of your users is going to have their own like directory, right? So let's look at user John over here. cd John. Uh, that's a typo. Yeah. So right now I can look at all of John's files if I wanted to. There's nothing in there, so there's no point in doing that. Okay, so let's go to my documents then, right? So we've covered CD and LS, right?
Excuse
right.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, could you go over how you go back to home again? Because when I try cd dot dot, it takes me back to root.
Oh yeah. Okay. So cd dot dot doesn't necessarily take you to home. It takes you to your parent directory, right? So in this specific case, I'm in the documents folder, right? The parent of documents folder is basically I think that's my users. Yeah, that's my users folder, right? And the parent to my users folder is my home folder, right? So if you want a shortcut to access your home folder immediately, right? Because putting dot dot like twice is I guess kind of tedious. Oh wait, let me first change my folder. Right. Yeah, pwd is that what am I doing? All right, yeah. So if you put cd and then the squiggly right here, this I can't highlight it. Okay, I'll just put the command right. cd that, right. That sends you to your home folder, right? Instantly. Yeah. Well, I'm already in my home folder, so it didn't do anything. But that's how you'd want to go there instantly. If you want to go to your root folder, cd /. Just type that in the chat too. Should I put my commands in the chat? I just will. Okay. Right. So let me go back to my home directory. Right. Okay. cd documents. Yeah, if you type clear, it like removes all the junk you have at the top. It's not essential, but it's just useful. Right. So I'm in my documents folder right now. Right. I have a bunch of files here. Right. Let's say I want to manipulate these files. Right. All right. So number one, let's say I wanted to modify file2.txt. Right. So modifying files, the simplest way to do it is that Ubuntu has a couple of services, like I guess packages that allow you to go into the file and change them, right? Namely, it's Vim, Nano, and Gedit, right? I prefer using Nano and Gedit because they're the easiest ones to use. Vim kind of has a learning curve. So if you have time, I guess you can look into Vim. Use Gedit for now. So Gedit file2.txt opens up file2.txt through the command line, right? So yeah, this is all I have for file2.txt. Hello world spells it incorrectly. Very interesting. Yeah. So let's say I wanted to change something, right? When using Gedit, it's really simple. Hello, I just modify the file, Control S, Command S if you're on those, and yeah, it's saved, right? All right. So if I open it again, yeah, it's the modified file, right? I'll just go over Nano briefly. Nano isn't as pretty as Gedit, but I guess a pro is that it opens entirely in the command line, right? So it's the same contents as what we saw in Gedit. It's just that again, it's in the command line. If you have your own VM running, I think it'd be a good idea to follow along. If you guys are on Mac OS, I'm not sure if Gedit works, but Nano does work on Mac OS. So yeah, I can put random stuff here. And to save on Nano, Control O, Control X to exit. All right. Yeah, again, if Nano's a little confusing, just use Gedit. I think it should be fine in terms of Cyber Patriots. All right, so now we know how to modify files, right? Oh yeah, if you use Gedit or Nano on a non-existent file, so let's say file 11.txt, it automatically opens it, right? It makes a new file. So just keep that in mind. Nano and Gedit are an easy way to create new files. Okay, so we know how to create and modify files. Let's say we wanted to copy a file, right? like, let's say, all right, yeah, okay, so you'd use that using the cp command. So cp takes two arguments. First is a file you want to copy, the file, let's say file2.txt, and then you put the destination of the file along with the name, right? So if the destination is your current directory, so I want to copy file2 into a file that's in documents, you can just skip that part and just put the name, right? So let's see, copy.txt, right? This will copy my file, right? But if you wanted to copy this into a different directory, you do the same thing for the first part, so cp file2.txt. However, instead you'd specify the path of your of the new file. So over here, more files is basically a directory within documents. So more files.txt, and then put the name you want for the file within more files. Copy.txt. Yeah, okay. I forgot. You don't need this ending part. You don't need to name it if you're moving to a different file. If you're moving it to a different directory, my bad. If you're moving it, I messed up. Okay, yeah. All right, I messed up a lot. Let me just redo that command. Okay, yeah. So what I just did is that I moved file2. I copied file to two more files, right? So if I open my files application, what that would look like is documents, more files. Yeah. So as you can see, I have a copy of file2 in my more files directory, right? So that's how you would copy files, right? So I'll put that. Okay, so someone asked, how will these commands be used in the tournament, right? During your tournament, again, you're gonna want to access your /etc like directory, which is really hard. I don't think you can access it from the file manager. I'm not sure if you can. So if you wanted to access a file in your /etc directory, you could then, let's say, get it. Let's say something in my checklist was that I had to modify my I don't know, sudoers file. Yeah. Well, I don't have permissions for that. I'll go into that later. But yeah, so basically using the command line and using these commands, you can like modify files in your /etc and like within like any directory within your system, like in a quick way. All right, so sudoers is basically I'll just go over that briefly right now. Sudoers is where you have all of your users that have like root privileges. So as I mentioned earlier, not all of my users can access root. So my current user, Rafu Kundakar, can access root, but like user John can't, just because I didn't let him. So yeah, all right, let me go back. There's a couple more commands I want to go over. All right, so we went over copying files. So cat rep, all right. Okay, so you can view the contents of a file just through like using nano or gedit. So gedit file2.txt. So I can like view everything within this file using like the using gedit or nano, right? But let's say you didn't want to do that. You don't want to modify anything. You just want to see it. You'd use cat for that. So cat file2.txt. Yeah, so cat and then the file you want to read out. Okay, so if you want to look for a specific string within your file, you'd use grep. So I want to look for hello spelled incorrectly, right? In my current directory. In my current file. So hello. Keep in mind that grep is case sensitive, right? So if I tried this, it would not return anything, right? But if I would do this, capitalizing the H, it returns the line where hello was found, along with the rest of the line, right? So just to recap, grep tells you grep like checks whether or not a string is within a file, and cat just spits out everything within the file. All right, so if you're looking for a file within a directory, right? So if I just hit ls, I can see all my files really easily. But if I had like 100 files in this directory, it'd be kind of hard to like it'd be kind of hard to tell if like I'm in my correct directory. Like I have a bad naming sense. So if I had file 2001, how would I find that? So easy way of you can use the find command. So I believe it is find dot and then name. All right. So what I just did is that this dot signifies my current directory, right? Because for the find command, you need to explicitly state out your current directory, unlike ls or c, unlike ls, which is just it just assumes that you're in your current. All right, and then you need the dash name argument. So a lot of commands, like especially when you're using more complex commands, you need to give they ask you for a specific option, right? So in this case, the option I'm giving is name, and the argument I'm giving for name is file2.txt. So just get used to the syntax of having like a what's that called? A dash, yeah. A dash and then an argument, right? That's essentially if you're trying to give more complex commands, that's like for giving specific options. Okay, so I'm gonna grep, find, cat, and cp. Okay, yeah. So that's just really general, I guess, navigation and manipulating files. Yeah, you usually want to have, yeah. So yeah, you want to put out spaces between like the parts of your command. Yeah. Oh, keep in mind though, there's not supposed to be a space between the dash and the option, right? So dash name is one thing. Okay, so went over that. As I mentioned earlier, like a root is a really powerful like thing to be in Linux, and usually when you're if you want to access root, you're going to be in your command line. Well, you're going to be in your terminal, my bad. So in order to access or do anything in root, you use a sudo command, right? Sudo basically is like, okay, do the following command as root, right? So let's say I wanted to modify file2.txt as root, right? For whatever reason. It prompts me for the password for Rafuku Docker. Keep in mind that the password for Rafuku Docker is also the password for like my entire system. So I'll just put that in. It's extremely secure. Don't worry about that. And it let me open this file, right? So you might be thinking, wait, I can just, access that file just by doing get file2.txt, right? Why do I need sudo? Well, certain files you can't access, right? As just your normal default user. So let's look at restricted.txt, right? Let's say I wanted to access that. Get it restricted.txt. Yeah. Oh shoot. Okay. It's not letting me do that because I'm not in sudo. But if I try that as sudo, sudo. Okay. All right. Let me just do that as nano instead. Sudo nano restricted.txt. It lets me open it without any problems, and I can also modify it as I want. I did that really quickly. I just modified it in case you didn't catch that. All right. Yeah. So sudo is really good for modifying restricted files and like accessing and reading restricted files, because if I were to use cat to print out within restricted.txt, it would not let me. But if I did in sudo, it would, right? So if you're doing a lot of things in sudo, it might be kind of annoying to like type sudo each time. So a shortcut is doing sudo -i, which essentially just instantly puts you in sudo. Keep in mind that it put me in sudo automatically because I just logged in to sudo, right? Like I just put in my password for sudo like a couple of commands ago. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. All right. Okay, yeah, if you go into sudo -i, I can do whatever commands I do from now on will be under root user. Just keep in mind though that the home directory for root is like, this might be kind of confusing. You might be like, okay, where am I, right? So if you get kind of confused, just put cd / and you're back to your and you're back to your root directory, right? And you can access home, Yeah. So essentially, the command as your root account, it's the commands are still the same. It's just that you don't have to put sudo in front of everything. Again, be very careful when you're using this because if you delete something, it's like gone, you know. And it won't catch you if you accidentally delete something you're not supposed to delete. So again, only go into sudo -i when you know what you're doing. All right, to get out of sudo, just hit exit. All right, you're out. Okay, another really useful thing for sudo and root is doing updates, right? Because you can be simple. Okay, not simple. That's me. You can use the GUI to get your updates, right? Or um, you can do all that in one line using the command line, right? So the service that installs packages and like updates is apt, right? So I believe getting updates is well. Okay, I'll go over installing stuff first. So in order to install a package, you apt install and then the package name, right? Package name. Keep in mind though that you have to be in root in order to like actually install anything. So this holds true for whether you're in the command line or if you're in the software center. Because again, if you try and install something, it asks you for your password. All right. So yeah. So let's say I wanted to install the Git package, GitHub package. Hit yes. I don't feel like doing it now, so I won't do it. Yeah, so you can essentially install any package at any time using the command line. So one of the pros of doing it with the command line is that, you know, it's kind of annoying to like look for it here. See, look at this lag. You know, you want to put up with this? No, you don't. That's why you should use a terminal. Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, all right. Let me just. Yeah, right. Ah, shoot, I did that without. So am I over?
No, it's just about done now.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, just one last thing. You can do your updates through the command line. So sudo apt get upgrade, and then and let's see, update. Well, I spelled that wrong, but yeah. All right, so that's how you do updates and upgrades with the command line. All right. Okay. Yeah. Oh.
Okay, thank you. Before you guys leave, I made a Slack channel. I will be posting most of our announcements related to competition stuff there. So I should have sent out an invite link to your personal emails. So check that. We have 24 teams this year, which is like a lot. So thank you guys for just being very cooperative as we approach our very first competition. Woo!
Yeah.
And yeah, as for and t-shirt sizes, I also sent out an email because I was too that Rashab that for t-shirt sizes, if you didn't give me your t-shirt size, I sent you an email because I was too lazy to stalk you through Facebook. So yeah. And that's all I have. So hope everybody has a good B block. Bye.
Thank you.
How can we practice this stuff?
Yeah, if you didn't get an email, then I have your shirt size, so don't worry about that.
Wait,
It's just
how can we practice this stuff? Like,
If you want to practice specifically what we went over during this lecture, you should try setting up a VM and just
oh
like
my god, I totally forgot. Ryan and I were planning on doing a practice image because there's a practice round on the 28th. So
Yeah, we'll
do one together.
we'll have everyone be just like we'll do it in the meetings so that everyone can see.
Mhm.
Like we can post it earlier since they should be out now, but
Yeah.
we'll go over it as like a club.
thank you.
Mhm. Bye, everyone.
recording ending.